Hey, good afternoon. It is Wednesday, February 10th, and we are the Budget and Taxation Committee of the Maryland Senate. Want to thank all the members and those who are presenting for being here. We do have 5 bills that we're going to be taking up today. So first, we're going to start with Senate Bill 574, which is the Income Tax Subtraction Modification Military Retirement Income Bill. And I believe our panel begins. This bill is introduced to President for the administration. So I think we have a panel with the President.
The governor's office, Senator.
I'm sorry?
The governor's office.
Okay, the governor's office will be presenting. Very good. Well, good to see you. We'll start with your testimony and then we'll take the witnesses after that. I believe we'll follow with Secretary Owens.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, very good. So you can begin. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I guess now it's Chair Griffith and members of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee. For the record, my name is Erin Chase, Deputy Legislative Officer with the Governor's Office. I'm here today to request your support and favorable report on Senate Bill 574, Income Tax Subtraction Modification Military Retirement, a bill your committee is very familiar with. This bill will phase in over 2 years a 100% state income tax exemption for military retirement. Under this bill, in tax year 2021, the greater of 50% or $15,000 would be exempt, and in tax year 2022, 100% of military retirement income would be exempt. Not only is this the right thing to do for our military retirees who have served and continue to serve our nation and state, this legislation makes economic sense. Each year, the defense industry in Maryland faces a shortage of over 7,000 positions, particularly for computer and mathematical, architecture, and engineering and science occupations. Active military members are generally eligible for retirement after 20 years of service. Many of these retirees will then go out and work in civilian jobs using their military experience for skills in the private sector. With such a large defense industry presence in Maryland, these skilled positions are ideal jobs and careers for our military retirees to fill. These retirees are then paying state income tax, sales tax on everything they buy, and possibly even business taxes, which boosts the state's economy. These are highly sought after citizens that bring immense economic value to the state. The majority of states do not tax military retirement income, and this legislation will bring us in line with those states. We owe a great deal of gratitude to our veterans, and this bill is one step we can take to give them our thanks, while also ensuring that Maryland is a great place for a person to live, work, raise a family, and retire. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to testify. The administration respectfully requests a favorable report on Senate Bill 574. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Maryland Secretary of Veterans Affairs, George Owens.
Thank you, Ms. Chase. Just a moment. Let me check with the members since you're functioning as the sponsor. Let me find out if anyone has any questions for you before we proceed. Okay, I don't see any questions, and I should have announced for the public and for those who are here, when you see members come and go, including our chair, our members are presenting bills in other standing committees, and so some will come and go throughout the hearing. So please know that it has nothing to do with the subject matter that you're presenting. We are doing the state's business. So with that, we'll turn it over to our good friend and former colleague, Secretary Owens. Good afternoon, sir.
Madam Chair, so good to see you, and to those that are zooming with us. Once again, you all have seen this before. World War II, 6628, Korea, 531, Vietnam, 1,046, Desert Storm, 1, Iraq, 87, and not updated, but Afghanistan, 54. Those are the number of people who put on a uniform from the state of Maryland and who gave their lives, and they will never see a retirement bill. In fact, they will never see another paycheck as it goes. So you've seen that before, but it's important for me to impress upon the committee just exactly what we're talking about here for those who did go to war, who did come back, and who continue to make the military their livelihood and their life, and they still serve. The department was created in 1999, as all of you know. And that year was the year that the first task force to look at this very issue was formed. 21 years ago, the first bill was introduced, and it was done. I think we have one Senate member still around who was on this initial bill, and that would have been Senator Edwards. He was one of the sponsors, 13 sponsors that year. 9 were veterans, including myself. Very proud of that bill. So we are now up to bill number 63 after 21 years. And I'm hoping this year will be the year that we can finally put this to rest. After 21 years and 63 bills, certainly its time has come. I got an email back in 16 from my counterpart out in Idaho, and he wanted to know, was Maryland doing anything for its retirees? And at that time, they were doing nothing. We were doing a little something. Well, since then, Idaho, David Russell was his name, Idaho has moved up to a $34,332 qualified retirement benefit exclusion. Now that's pretty well at the top. So if Idaho, who was just looking at the issue 6 years ago, has moved that far ahead of us, I'd like to think that we can catch up with them now. Let's see, what else did I have for you? Got so many papers here. Oh, to bring it home, I mean, just you all have seen this bill so many times, it's not funny. And I should point out that the Senate is the one that passes it over to the House. I'm hoping you'll talk to your colleagues over there this year, and maybe they will move it, but you all always manage to get the bill out. I'm hoping to tell my cousin who moved from Cambridge to Pennsylvania because of this very issue, and that he could come back home. He was born and raised in Cambridge, and because of the tax consequences, he did move some few years ago. Anyway, the governor, once again, as he has consistently since he has been in office, put this bill forth. And in fact, in looking over the history, I noticed that had the House passed and acquiesced to you all 2 years ago, we would be at the 100% mark now, because it was phased in once before, couldn't get it out all the way around, and so here we are again. But I want to thank you and the members of the Senate for always pushing this bill across the aisle. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Any questions for this panel? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Great.
We're going to hear from Robert Norton, Patrick Gubayo, and David Peterson. And I apologize if I've mispronounced a name. So, Mr. Norton?
Thank you, Senator Griffith, and thank you, members of the committee. My name is Bob Norton. I'm pleased to be able to provide a recommendation on this bill, SB 574. As I said, I am Bob Norton of District 19. I am a retired Army officer and the president of the Maryland Military Coalition. I am also the president of the Maryland Military Officers Association of America Council of Chapters. The Maryland Military Coalition is a nonpartisan group of 18 leading Maryland military and veterans organizations who represent 150,000 currently serving men and women, including members of the Maryland National Guard, veterans, military retirees, their families, survivors, and caregivers. Our coalition strongly supports SB 574. From our perspective, the bill is a valuable workforce development opportunity for our state and its economy. Uniformed services retirees are in great demand across the nation for their leadership, skill, dedication, and experience. They have choices where to live and work after military service. 31 of 50 states do not tax military pensions, including 3 bordering states, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. Maryland does. Our state is not as attractive as it could be to military retirees evaluating second career location options. SB 574 gives them an incentive to pursue second careers and live in Maryland, where they can contribute to the state's economy after the pandemic and pay taxes on second career employment. In the post-pandemic world, it's likely that some form of work from home will continue. That means retirees could more easily live in neighboring states while commuting fewer days to Maryland jobs. Getting them to work and live in Maryland should be a common sense goal for our state. This bill supports that goal. The Maryland Military Coalition requests a favorable report on SB 574, the income tax subtraction modification, military retirement income legislation. Thank you again, Senator Griffith and members of the committee.
Thank you. Very good. I did not announce that each witness would have 2.5 minutes, but I think you made it in under the wire. I didn't get a notification. So thank you so much for your testimony. Any questions before we move on? Okay, the next witness is Patrick. Help me with your last name if you are here. I don't see Patrick.
He's here. I just can't unmute him.
Okay, are you there? Oh, I do see. Yes.
Yes, I am.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Senator Griffin and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. I'm Patrick DeBow, representing the American Legion, and it's nice to be back with you again. You've been provided a copy of our statement of support, so in the interest of time, just allow me to summarize our statement. I won't repeat the economic advantages for the state, the employment community, and in time, our tax rolls. The governor's representative and Colonel Norton have already done that, and there's no need repeating. What I wish to note is those men and women who elected not to begin their working lives in the civilian workforce, but rather serve our nation, some putting their lives on the line at times. And that was their career. They did not enjoy the stability of community because most were on the move almost every 2 years, finding new homes, enrolling their children in another school, and all the while trying to be a part of the community that they were sent to serve. This measure will enable them to buy homes, automobiles, and other necessities here, and it will demonstrate that Maryland is a veteran-friendly state. The element in this bill that I'm most impressed with is the phase out over a 2-year period, which I think and will the gradual tax reduction will reduce the immediate shock to state revenues. In closing, the American Legion, with its 46,000 plus members who reside throughout our state, respectfully ask you for a favorable report on Senate Bill 574. This will allow all of us to say, when we greet a retired service person with that, thank you for your service, we will have put true meaning in that statement. Thank you, Senator Griffin.
Thank you very much, sir. Any questions? Okay, very good. We will now move to our fifth witness on this bill, David Peterson. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me now?
We can now. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Guzon and members of the committee. My name is David Peterson. I'm a retired captain from the Commission Corps of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and I am representing the Association of Commissioned Officers in support of Senate Bill 574. In 2018, the General Assembly, through enactment of House Bill 1542, directed a trio of state departments to contract for a study of the defense industry in the state. The Towson University Regional Economic Studies Institute, under that contract, delivered its work product called A Study of Employment in the State's Defense Industry in October of 2019. In studying the state's defense industry, a requested aspect of the development of recommendations that could aid the state in recruiting retired military personnel for employment in the industry. The Towson study reached the following conclusion: that the state should take steps to make Maryland more affordable for military retirees. In this regard, the particular recommendation made was to accomplish this by, and I quote, fully exempting all military pensions from taxation, end quote. It seems to the members of my organization that the governor's bill, Senate Bill 574, proposes to directly give life to the General Assembly sought information. The NOAA Association of Commissioned Officers affirmatively supports the bill and asks that it receive a favorable report as it advances in the legislative process. Did I make it under 2 minutes and 30 seconds? Thank you.
You did an excellent job. Thank you very much. I don't see any questions from Mr. Peterson. So with that, that concludes, members, the hearing on Senate Bill 574. Thank you all so much for coming and for your testimony.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you for filling in. Sorry, I had to step out for a couple minutes. Did catch the end there, so that was good. Next up, we have Senate Bill 572, Retirement Tax Reduction Act of 21. Mr. Mitchell, administration.
Members of, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Kiefer Mitchell, Chief Legislative Officer for the governor, joined here by Deputy Legislative Officer Ali Keene, who will go through the bill. I'll be very brief in my comments. We're here again as part of the governor's commitment since taking office of reducing taxes for all Marylanders. This bill is another effort by the governor to reduce the tax burden on our retirees so that they don't have to make that choice whether staying in Maryland or looking to move to other jurisdictions that may have a less of a tax burden regarding their retirement pay. At this time, I would ask for a favorable report on this bill, and I'll turn it over to Ali Keene, who will walk through the legislation for you.
Good afternoon, Chair Gazone, Vice Chair Rosapep, and members of the Senate Budget and Tax Committee. For the record, Ali Keene with the Governor's Office. I'm here in support of Senate Bill 572, which, as Kiefer mentioned, is the Governor's Retirement Tax Reduction Act. The governor, as he travels across the state, he often hears from retirees that say they have lived their whole lives in Maryland and want to stay with their families and their grandchildren, but because of taxes, they are looking to other states to move. And we would like to try to fix that problem and keep our retirees in Maryland. That is the reason we have the bill before you today. This is a relatively simple bill and the same bill that your committee heard last session. It says that if you make less than $100,000 in federal adjusted gross income, you won't have to pay taxes for the first $50,000 of that income. We are hopeful that this incentive will keep more Marylanders in our state, where they are a vital part of our communities. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you. Joe Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. I appreciate this opportunity to witness for my fellow Marylanders who are rapidly approaching retirement. As you approach retirement, you have to make a myriad of decisions that can have a lasting impact on your quality of life and perhaps that of your immediate family. Cost is central to many of those decisions. Basic cost of living expenses such as housing, utilities, healthcare, and food. Quality of life expenses such as entertainment, travel, grandchildren. And we also realize in a particular way as we get older, the accuracy of the words of Benjamin Franklin and others throughout history that in this world, nothing can be certain except death and taxes. All of us seek in some way to live our life to the best that we know how, to take advantage of the short time we have by living life to the fullest. Many of us have worked hard to support ourselves and our families, and we're looking forward to the time that that effort pays off. And we have the opportunity and hopefully the resources to have a pleasant respite at the end of our years. Taxes are a necessary part of providing for the common good of a society, and we understand that. But this bill provides in a direct way an opportunity to allow those who have invested their lives and their livelihood in this great state to age in place. In a place we've called home for much or all of our life. Our kids were raised here, and many of us have families close at hand, a support structure that we're going to need as we get older. This bill at its fruition has the opportunity to provide people with an extra couple $100s a month of income in retirement. Now, a couple $100s a month can have a profound impact on the life and dignity of the human person. It can also be a decision point between staying in Maryland, our home, or the realization that affordable retirement can only be found elsewhere, and making the difficult decision to move away to a state that puts less of a tax burden on its retirees. Simply put, we'd rather stay. We're invested. But in the end, we have to live within our means. And so I ask you to support this legislation in the hopes that it gives many of us the opportunity we need to continue to call Maryland our home. Thank you again for this brief opportunity to witness.
Thank you very much. Senator Alfrith, was this a question for Mr. Carpenter or was it for the previous panel? I didn't see your hand before.
It's for the previous panel, Mr. Chair, whenever it's appropriate.
Now would be just fine.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mitchell, Ms. Keen, good to see you all. We hear this bill every year, and it's something, you know, I want to do every year, but we also have to grapple with passing a balanced budget that reflects our values. And when I hear this bill, I think about my own parents who retired to Delaware specifically for this reason, but they also have roads that are not meeting the need. They have to drive 3 hours for their doctor to take their insurance. They have not enough police officers for the growing county they live in. At the end of the day, they're getting what they pay for, which is far less infrastructure that we all believe in that makes Maryland so great. So my question, I guess, is the fiscal note here, both at the state and on the locals as well, is significantly high. What is the governor's strategy for paying for this moving forward?
Yeah. So thank you for your question, Senator Alfrith. I did want to note a couple of things. Obviously, our revenue projections are better than we had anticipated, especially at the close of last session. This benefit, particularly in this bill, starts in FY23, so we are a year off. And overall, in terms of our budget strategy, I think in the conversations we've had with the governor, he's very much focused on Maryland's long-term economic recovery, especially after the pandemic. And he thinks obviously keeping more retirees in Maryland will help with that in terms of other revenue sources that we can get, having more individuals paying things like sales tax or property taxes. So that is the governor's position on the legislation.
Okay, thank you. Of course, I think we'd all love to hear, not you've done a wonderful job presenting the bill, but I know we'd all love to hear from him about his priorities as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Young. You're on mute still.
Actually, I put a similar bill in for 6 straight years before the governor put his in.
We're happy to support yours. We'll be happy to support that one. Appreciate it.
Well, I'm not concerned about which one gets supported. I just think it is a good idea. And I noted in mine that North Carolina years ago did a study on this and actually showed that it paid for itself by keeping the retirees in the state with the other taxes they paid, with the volunteer work and other things they did. So at least, though I would like to see the bill passed, I know there's still the financial concerns, but at least I think if we have to keep delaying it, we ought to do something similar to what North Carolina did and do a study of this, because I think it'll come back showing it's a positive thing to do.
Thank you for your support, Senator Young.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes this hearing. We're moving on to Senate Bill 573. income tax subtraction modification, correctional officers, law enforcement, on and on. Hometown heroes, you win today for the longest title.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gazone, Vice Chair Rosapep, and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. For the record, Andrew Cashley, Senior Advisor for the Governor's Office. Today I'm speaking to you on behalf of Senate Bill 573. Joining me on my panel is retired firefighter Michael Runn. Senate Bill 573 expands Maryland's existing hometown heroes subtraction modification by exempting 100% of retirement income for law enforcement officers, firefighters, rescue or emergency services personnel, or correctional officers. Senate Bill 573 also seeks to lower the eligibility age from 55 to 50. The legislation is phased in over 2 years, beginning with tax year 2021. Current law provides individuals age 55 and older a subtraction modification for the first $15,000 of retirement income earned as a result of the individual's employment as a law enforcement officer or fire, rescue, or emergency services personnel of the United States, the state, or a political subdivision of the state. Allowing those who put their lives in the line for our protection to exempt the retirement income they've earned will make our state a better place for our hometown heroes to live, work, and retire. Not only is this the right thing to do, it will help us attract these individuals or valuable professionals to our state. The administration appreciates the leadership and commitment of this committee and the General Assembly in providing these hard-earned benefits to our public safety professionals and looks forward to continuing to work together to expand the subtraction modification. For these reasons, the administration respectfully requests a favorable report on Senate Bill 573.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Budget and Tax. My name is Michael Runn. I'm the President Emeritus of the Professional Firefighters of Maryland, and I'm also a retiree after 32 years as a firefighter in Howard County. We're here to request support of Senate Bill 573, Hometown Heroes. And first of all, we'd like to thank this committee because this is the committee that passed out the current 15,000 that we currently have today. But Senate Bill 573 seeks to go to 100% of that. As you know, firefighters put their lives on the line every day for the communities they serve. We serve long careers as firefighters, and we want to stay in the communities that we serve. We've built roots, we've built friends, we have family here. Unfortunately, though, when we retire, one of the first things, when we meet a financial advisor, they ask is, where do you want to retire to? And if you tell them Maryland, they say, why? Because you get such a better break, even nearby states, Pennsylvania, Delaware. You've heard it from the bills we've had in the past. We'd like to be able to stay and spend our money in the state, but a lot of us will move out of state just so we can get the break and still be close to family. As you know, Delaware has no sales tax. Pennsylvania doesn't tax any retirement income. And lastly, I'd like to add that over the years, pension systems have taken a hit through the financial market, and us as firefighters have been asked to deep digger into our pockets and have more contributions coming out of our pay to help fund those things. We gladly do that. I mean, I don't know of any jurisdiction firefighters that are paying less than 7-8% into their own pension system, some as high as 12. So this will go a long way to keeping the firefighters who serve their communities in the state, and we ask for a favorable report of Senate Bill 573. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Question, is the whole panel with you, or there's two other testifiers? Are they with you or are they not?
No, they're not, sir.
Okay. Any questions for these gentlemen? Okay. Next up is Stephen Chisano.
I don't see him, Senator,
Okay.
at all.
Okay. Then John.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gazone and members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to speak favorably regarding SB 573. My name is John Ripley. I'm the president of the Baltimore County Federation of Public Employees, representing about 500 active and retired correctional officers. I'm also a correctional lieutenant with 30 years of service in Baltimore County. We urge your support of SB 573. I think it's undisputed that these public safety servants in the state of Maryland will only help make our community safer by keeping more of them here upon retirement. Again, like my colleague earlier, we want to thank you for the bill that's already been passed supporting 15,000 subtraction modification. We have seen that that has helped make a difference, but that hasn't stopped the overall bleed of retirees leaving upon retirement in the county or in the state. So again, we urge your support, and I thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. Questions? Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Hey, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Apologize.
No problem at all. I just wanted to acknowledge Mr. Ripley, president of BACFP. Is just a good friend of mine, a labor brother, and just wanted, this is his first time on the committee. Just wanted to lift that up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You got it. All right. That concludes the hearing on that bill. And now we're moving to Senate Bill 551, Senator Rosa Pep, the School Construction Incentive Act.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. I'm in the cave. I didn't move my light out to better lighting, but you guys know what I look like, so not to worry. So this bill is one that the committee has seen before, and it's an issue the committee has dealt with over a number of years. And Senator Peters in particular, obviously as chair of capital budget, has been particularly involved in it. But also he's worked with me over the years on these issues related to expanding school construction. And again, I'll bring up Senator Serafini, who we've talked about repeatedly. He's here in spirit because he was my co-conspirator on the basis of this legislation over several years, which is essentially to take our school construction dollars and make them go farther. We had the Knott Commission 4 years ago, 5 years ago, they did a deep dive on school construction. And one of their recommendations was to look at how we could get our dollars to go farther. And that relates to more efficient use of our dollars. We passed a bill called the School Construction Incentive Act, which said that if a county brought in a project, a new project, these are probably new projects, at least 20% in the first year, and then after the first year was 10% below the average cost of school construction on a per student basis, they'd get a bump in state funding. The idea was to create an incentive from state money to encourage local school systems to design schools in a way that are more efficient. There were only 3 school systems that were included in the legislation because Senator Serafini wanted Washington County, and Barry Glassman, the county executive of Hartford, wanted Hartford, and Prince George's County, under then county executive Rashern Baker, wanted Prince George's. The bill didn't work that well. as perfect as it was, passed by our committee. And the only county that took advantage of it or tried to take advantage of it was Prince George's County. And they identified a project, and for a variety of reasons that we can talk about if you're interested, it didn't work. So one of the other pieces of the Knott Commission on school construction was to set up 2 work groups, one of which I served on along with Senate President Bill Ferguson, and another work group that Senator Ferguson served on as well, both to look at really detailed issues on the cost of school construction, the cost of maintenance, making sure that our school buildings are maintained the way they should be. In that process, I worked very closely with Bob Gorel, who runs the IAC, who you all know, who's on the call and will be testifying, to come up with a better approach to incentivizing school systems to work with the IAC to make sure school construction dollars go farther. So what this bill does, and a lot of technicalities to it, and I'll defer that to Mr. Gorel, But essentially what it says is that if a school system brings in a proposal to the IAC where the cost per student, and the cost per student is important. It's not cost per square foot. It's not the total cost. We want equity. We do not want to be spending twice as much or 3 times as much on one student's building as opposed to another student's building. And we do that historically because of the way the system has worked historically. So it says that if you bring in a proposal for a new building where the total cost of ownership, which means the first cost, the construction cost, but also the projected cost of operation for the next 30 years. Because how you build, we all know this conceptually. If you build a house that's energy inefficient, it's going to cost you more on the long run for energy costs. If you build it with terrible materials that fall down, you have to replace materials later on. So what Mr. Gorel and his staff at the IAC have come up with is a model based on industry standards, which says that if you bring in your total cost of ownership for the project below the projected costs based on industry-wide data in the United States, you will get a bonus from the state share. So you'll get more state money for that project if you're more efficient. It's an incentive. It's not mandatory. School systems can do what they want. Counties can do what they want. But this is an incentive to use the money better to serve more kids quicker. The way the bill is drafted, it says that you have to bring the total cost of ownership, both construction costs and operating costs projected, at least 10% below sort of the national average is the way to think about it. And you get a percentage of additional state money in proportion to how much you bring it in below that projected cost. So 10% you get X, 15% you get X times 1.5, 20% you get 2X. So it's flexible, but it's a real incentive, it's real money. And the IAC has done projections on this that show that if this is done, it will save both the counties and the state money on a per student basis. Secondly, it will stretch our limited school construction dollars much farther, meaning we can build more schools quicker and we can maintain them in a way that we don't have the situations that we've had. I know I have in Prince George's, I'm sure other people have, where when it rains in the classroom, not just on the roof. Because it relates the cost of maintenance to the cost of construction. One of the problems with our traditional school construction program is the state and the counties come up with the capital money to build it, but then the maintenance costs have to come out of the regular school system operating budget. And so it's competing with hiring teachers. It's competing with hiring aides. And so this will both make more money available for school construction and more money available for the instructional program. So that's the essence of the bill. You'll see in written testimony from Mako and Mabe that they have some questions. They support it in general. They have some questions about the formulas, the details. I'm happy to work with them. And I've talked to Mr. Gorel, and he's happy to work with them to try to deal with some of those technical issues. But the essence of it is really to do more with less, do it more efficiently, and help more kids. Happy to answer questions.
Okay. Mr. Gorel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And committee members, my name is Bob Gorel. For the record, I'm the Executive Director of the Interagency Commission on School Construction. And with me today is Alex Donahue, who is the Deputy Director of Field Operations. That's a new area that we've expanded from 5 years ago so that we are able to directly support the LEAs and increase communication so that we can develop the support and best practices that help us all to grow and improve continuously. We appreciate the opportunity to provide additional information about Senate Bill 551, the School Construction Incentive Act of 2021. On average, our statewide portfolio square footage is now 30 years old. For most facilities, homes, offices, or schools, we start to think that at this age, some renewal is warranted. For schools, it's usually a time we think that major renovation is required in order to properly support the educational environment. We have not been able to really keep up with that, We estimate that on average throughout the state, we are after construction somewhere between 10 and 60% underfunded on the cost to own, which can be as much as the cost to build it to begin with. And that's the essence of what we're trying what the senator has tried to do in this bill. The bill is not related in any way to the facility assessment. This bill is related to new construction or really new schools or renewal schools. The assessment is about the existing facilities throughout the state. We're looking at them currently. We're nearing halfway complete. It's moving along quite well now. And that will give us information to queue things up as far as high needs. That'll of course be the way we're structured now, the local education agencies and counties' choice, what projects they want to move forward, but it provides additional information for that. The 21st Century Facilities Act 2018 mandated that the IAC provide technical assistance to Maryland local school districts in matters of facilities portfolio management and to develop incentives that would lower the cost of construction, school construction. Again, I got to say, because there seems to be confusion, this is only about new construction and not about the rest of the CIP type projects, which the majority of our projects, renovation and the systems renewal, end up going to. Some portion of the CIP dollars go to these new schools. This bill would allow the opportunity, if chosen, for the LEA to find a way, it might even cost more to build it in the beginning, so that you get longer duration and better performance with lower operational costs over the 30-year expected life. The work group on educational development specifications met in the spring of 2019. I chaired the work group, and the vice chair of this committee and sponsor of this bill, this current committee that I'm testifying, and sponsor of this bill also served along with a number of school system representatives, other legislators, architects, builders, and IAC members. And the work group recognized that lowering just the first cost of construction would not be a wise approach, as first costs can, in fact, end up costing a local education agency in the school district more in the long run to own and operate because of early failure and durability and lack of function. It's the long-term costs that count, and that's what this bill is focused on. And the work group determined that that this approach was a good approach. The total cost of ownership, or TCO for short, is made up of the cost to construct a facility plus the cost to operate and maintain that facility over the typical function lifespan. As I have said a couple of times, 30 years is the measure we've used as a standard and is used throughout the industry. And we'll use our benchmarks against that standard in order to measure, as anticipated, whether the design school, when they come to us for funding, can achieve this or not. And every percent below 10%, at 10%, it's 7.5% additional funding from the state. The fiscal sustainability of each LEA's portfolio is a very long game, as you're aware, and can only be approved one project at a time by assuring that that project is affordable and maintainable over its lifespan. And this cost of ownership is just that. As each project is completed, new or renew, our portfolio, if we do this right, will get better and better and lower our total cost of ownership, which has climbed through the years. Alex will now jump into some of the details, and then we'll stand for questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, for the record, my name is Alex Donahue, Deputy Director for Field Operations for the IAC. This bill would provide local school districts with an incentive, optional, to build school facilities more efficiently by offering additional state funds for new construction and full renovation projects, wherein the school district can bring the estimated total 30-year cost of ownership down at least 10% below the IAC's baseline total cost of ownership. It does this by increasing the state share of eligible construction costs by 3/4 of a percentage point for every 1 percentage point of reduction in total cost of ownership. TCO can be reduced in many ways, such as by using materials that are more durable and require less maintenance, by designing the facility to lower the operational costs such as heating, cooling, and cleaning, and by maximizing the use of space through innovative design and administrative practices. Modern furniture, for example, can allow multiple uses of a single space. But here's an example of how this would work. The IAC's baseline total cost of ownership this year for a new middle school for about 750 students is around $100 million. TCO 30 years, that's about $49 million to build it and about $51 million estimated to operate and maintain over 30 years. This baseline is calculated on industry standards and, as Bob mentioned earlier, is not related to facilities assessment. Instead, the baseline assumes industry standard operating costs in addition to the estimated cost to construct. If a local school district, however, is able to build this school with a total cost of ownership of $90 million over 30 years instead of $100 million, under this legislation, the state share of the construction cost increases by 7.5 percentage points, and the county pays less for their project. For a county, for example, that receives a 70% share of eligible project costs from the state, this would mean that the LEA would achieve a total TCO savings of almost $8 million. The state would save an additional $2 million over the 30 years, in large part because the state's share of future roof, air conditioning, and other system replacements over time will be less than they would have otherwise been. On a single project, these savings are significant, but when you think about the impact this kind of savings could have across approximately 1,400 school facilities in the state, you can see the impact of TCO savings will better position each LEA and the entire state to have educationally sufficient school facilities long into the future. The IEC has already taken some measures to ensure that the TCO of each project is fully understood by the school systems and stakeholders. This legislation would further that agenda and provide a financial benefit to school districts that are thinking in the long term, which will benefit every child in every seat in Maryland. And Bob and I are available to answer questions.
Thank you very much. Senator McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator. But I guess my questions are for the IEC. So, and I asked the questions only because I expected you all are subject matters in reference to school construction, and I'm speaking as an electrician. So when we think about projects, we're thinking about them, the only costs for projects are materials and man hours. So if the cost for materials does not change, the only cost that could change would be man hours. And knowing that we have in statute that for school construction that 25% of a school is funded, anything 25% or more is funded by the state of Maryland, they have to abide by a prevailing wage. It doesn't give you much room to change the man hours piece of it. So I listened very intently to try to understand these standards or how you would be able to do it. But the only thing that I saw that made sense was if you change the furniture, and that's not going to get you to the 10% savings. So if you can elaborate on where would the cost come from, because the materials are not going to get cheaper. The man hours are set in statute in reference to what it would cost. So how would you get to that 10% saving that you're driving unless someone's cheating the man hours?
Thank you, Senator. Yeah, for example, a standing seam metal roof costs more to put in than does a flat roof, either a TPO roof or a built-up gravel type roof. But it's less expensive whenever you consider at the 30-year point that you have not had to replace that standing seam metal roof. So that's an example, and it's a savings. It's a percent savings that might run 20-30% as far as the savings during that time period. As far as electrical goes, you know too that most of the time when we build schools, we're using a high enough quality of switches and light fixtures in that they probably will not need to be replaced in that 30-year life period. But sometimes when there's a tight budget, that decision isn't made. So we want to consider durable products whenever we install them. Square footage wise, yes, there's an opportunity to put in a smaller square footage using the furniture. That's the easiest way to save total operation cost is by creating a more compact facility. The same as more compact cars are less expensive to operate than large cars. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge to determining and defining well the educational process, what is needed, and then challenging the architects and the designers to not think about how pretty it might be as you walk into the front door, but how it's going to function and operate. because we know that the most important thing in education is that the environment, how it feels when you walk inside, the paint and that's not coming off the walls, the air conditioning works, the lighting's good, we have good ventilation. Those are the important things that we can focus on and deliver those, possibly with a smaller footprint and with more durable materials that are less expensive to maintain. And even lighting, electrically. LED lights are a perfect example. Now that we have started to use those, they are more expensive to put in, as you know, rather than a T8 system or T5. But they're going to last much, much longer than those fluorescent fixtures. And so the cost of labor, the cost of even replacing ballasts and that get dropped off in the long term. So we're not looking at just the first cost. We're looking at what it's really going to cost to own and operate it over time.
Just to follow up, Mr. Chair, Director Grill, I just want to reiterate that our schools are probably some of the most well-built buildings in the state of Maryland. A lot of them are outlasting their lifespan that we have at this moment. And I say this very respectfully, that when you talk about a 10% margin in savings, you know this already, but just so that the committee knows that when you talk about these elementary schools, middle schools, this is $30–40 million projects. These high schools are north of $40–50 million to put forward. You're not going to get $3 million in savings from electrical switches that cost 60-some cents if you charge the cheapest ones, and $20 if it's like the energy efficient switch. I look forward to learning more about it, but I am a little bit leery because I know that there's only two. I'm just glad that you didn't say it was the man hours cost. You did say that it was the material that you envision from this space, but I'm not sure that I'm there, but I do look forward to learning more about it. Thank you.
Very good. Kevin Canali.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Kevin Canali here in support of Senate Bill 511 with amendments. You have our written testimony, but I'd just like to make a few points. So the ideas of expanding what the state considers as shared costs, that's a great idea. And so is the idea of ramping up the state share of costs when a project does something that the state wants to see. So we think that the carrots in this bill are very good. However, some of the details in this bill are hinged on the idea that we know the right way to measure costs of operations, that we all agree on the way to measure and report facility conditions, and that there is consensus on the one state system for facility management. But that's just not the case. So for instance, in recent years, I think you've heard both the Knott Commission and its successor have brought multiple stakeholders together to contemplate matters such as a uniform facility condition index. No consensus was ever achieved by the work group, and it was agreed that the matter would be tabled until the facility conditions were assessed statewide. So any legislation attaching potentially dramatic incentives to this scorecard seems to be inherently premature since the facility condition assessment is not complete. So there are a lot of good things in this bill, but we think that many of the technical details are too premature to pass now. We prefer to let the stakeholder process play out. We're happy to hear that Senator Rosapep is willing to work with us to address these concerns, and we're happy to work with him and with the committee as well. But at this point, we support the bill with amendments. We think we need to work some of the kinks out, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Senators, do you have any questions for anybody who's testified on this bill? Okay. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Last but not least, 558, Carroll County Senators, Carroll County Instant Ticket Lottery Machines.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Justin Reedy here from District 5. Just thrilled to be with you all today. This is actually the first.
We're thrilled to have you.
Yeah. Well, this is the first bill I'm presenting in this new format, and it's definitely weird. So we'll all get through it together. But this is a relatively easy bill. It's a local bill, and we've talked about this issue before. Senate Bill, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chair, members of the committee, Senate Bill 558 is legislation requested by the Carroll County Senate delegation. As it currently stands, the State Lottery and Gaming Control Agency may issue specified veterans organizations a license for up to 5 instant ticket lottery machines. We're requesting that in Carroll County, we could extend this eligibility to organizations to include fraternal and sororal organizations in our county. I don't have to tell anybody on this call, on the Zoom meeting, that it has been a very difficult time for our nonprofits and many of our fraternal and sororal organizations in the state, just like it's been difficult for all of our constituents. And so this is an opportunity we feel to help them. I know that there's been talk in the past of a statewide solution on this issue, and we certainly support that idea, but we're putting in a bill for our local county so that we can have a seat at the table on that discussion. This would increase state general fund revenues, and it would also, for our county, diversify the types of events that we're able to have when we're able to have events again. So this bill was approved by our Carroll County Senate delegation 3-0, and we would respectfully request a favorable report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. I do have one witness on the line with us as well.
Okay, let's hear from that witness first. Pete, is it Semios?
Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for letting me testify today. And thank you, Senator Reedy, because you hit all my points that I was going to talk about, so that'll cut my testimony down. So thank you there. But I would make the one point. It was very interesting listening to the testimony of the previous bills today and how tough that how tough it is for you guys to make these decisions. But the one thing about this bill is it'll actually make money for the state. It won't cost the state any money at all. So I think it's another reason that we could get a favorable report from the committee. So unless somebody has some questions, other than the Elks is a very good organization. We do a lot for the community. The senator knows that, and the rest of our delegates and senators do. We do widespread stuff for various people, including veterans. So we would definitely like to see a favorable report here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Questions for the senator or the witness? Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Senator.
All right, that concludes our hearing for today. Guess we have subcommittees tomorrow, and I think that's kind of it. Onward and upward. Thank you all very much.